Where is your father? Is he alive? What killed him?
Loyalty.
Loyalty. Was loyalty really what got Ned Stark killed, or have we been reading this scene wrong the whole time? See, the moment Robert Baratheon died, the Old Order was already over. From that point on, it didn't matter who was right, it mattered who moved first. But Ned Stark? He was still playing by the old rules. He still believed the king's last word, people's promises, and the law itself could stop anyone. The scene we're about to watch in a few minutes isn't really about how Ned Stark died. It's the final act of a defeat that started way earlier. So let's break down one of the best written betrayal scenes in Game of Thrones history, frame by frame.
Oh, all right. It's all right, let him through.
Lord Stark, King Joffrey and the Queen Regent request your presence in the throne room.
King Joffrey?
King Robert is gone. The gods give him rest.
Pay attention because there's a huge detail hiding in this short exchange. Before the messenger even announces Robert's death, he shows up saying, King Joffrey. That's exactly why Ned asks, King Joffrey? Because while Robert was still alive, there was no way anyone could call Joffrey king. Ned hasn't even gotten the news of the death yet, and he's already staring down the court's new reality. And that tells us something. The moment Robert died, everyone else started moving at the exact same time. The king's funeral isn't even ready, and the new order has already kicked off, because power doesn't always change hands the moment a crown gets placed on someone's head. It changes the second people start speaking in someone else's name. For Ned Stark, this isn't just news of a death, it's the first sign that everyone around him is moving a lot faster than he is.
All is accomplished, the city watch is yours. Good.
Here's the line that holds up Ned's entire plan. Littlefinger tells him the City Watch now answers to Ned, and Ned buys it without a shred of doubt. But watching this scene a second time today, you notice something completely different. Littlefinger isn't just lying here, he's telling Ned exactly what he wants to hear. Because the easiest way to fool people is to tell them what they already want to believe. And Ned isn't listening to Littlefinger's character, he's listening to his word. Honestly, this might be the exact moment the whole plan falls apart, because Ned never actually trusted Littlefinger to begin with. The truth is, the betrayal that's about to happen doesn't start in the throne room. The throne room is just where the lie gets exposed.
Is Lord Renly joining us?
I fear Lord Renly has left the city.
On first watch, this news makes it look like Renly panicked and ran. But think back to the previous episode. Renly had already offered to help Ned seize control of the capital before Joffrey ever took the throne. Ned turned him down because in his mind, doing the right thing meant waiting for the law to run its course. Renly, on the other hand, understood that this had become an era where soldiers would do the talking, not laws. So he didn't run. He refused to stay stuck in a game that was already lost. Everyone walking down that hallway is headed to the same place, but they're each seeing a completely different reality. Ned's biggest problem was never a lack of courage. It's that he still hadn't figured out what game everyone around him was actually playing.
We stand behind you, Lord Stark.
Honestly, I think this is the most ironic line in the whole scene, because in a few minutes, one of the first people to betray Ned Stark is going to be Janos Slynt again. But what matters here isn't that Janos is lying. What matters is that Ned accepts his word without even questioning it. Because to Ned, a promise still means something. Meanwhile, in Westeros politics, loyalty can be bought, swapped, and sold off when it's convenient. The writers are telling us in one single line exactly what's about to happen, but they do it so naturally that almost nobody catches it on the first watch. Now think about everything that's happened so far. Robert's dead, Joffrey's already being called king before he's even sat on the throne, Littlefinger told Ned the City Watch is on his side, Renly's left the capital, and Janos Slynt just swore his loyalty to Ned. On paper, it looks like Ned Stark still holds every advantage, but this is exactly where Game of Thrones gets brutal, because sometimes it doesn't take one bad decision to lose a war. Sometimes the real mistake is assuming the people you're fighting are still playing by your rules. Ned walks into that throne room believing justice and the law itself will protect him. But what's waiting for him in there isn't a debate. It's a trap that's already been set.
All hail his grace, Joffrey of houses Baratheon and Lannister, the first of his name. King of the Andals and the first men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and protector of the realm.
Here's the detail almost nobody catches on first watch, but it's the writers giving away the entire outcome of the scene in the very first line. When the herald introduces Joffrey, he says House Baratheon and Lannister. Normally, in Westeros tradition, a king is only referred to by his father's house, so we should really only be hearing the name Baratheon. But adding Lannister isn't an accident, because even before Robert's body is in the ground, everyone in that court already knows exactly which house really holds the power. Sure, technically it's a Baratheon sitting on the Iron Throne, but the person actually running things behind the scenes is already Cersei. Without saying a single word outright, the writers are telling us the Iron Throne now belongs to the Lannisters.
I command the council to make all necessary arrangements for my coronation. I wish to be crowned within the fortnight. Today I shall accept oaths of fealty from my loyal councillors.
Sir Barristan, I believe no man here could ever question your honor.
King Robert's seal, unbroken.
There's also a really subtle detail here that most people miss.
Lord Eddard Stark is herein named Protector of the Realm, to rule as regent until the heir come of age.
On his deathbed, Robert kept saying, "My son, Joffrey." But Ned doesn't write that in the letter. Instead, he uses much vaguer wording. This is honestly one of the rare political moves Ned makes in the entire show, because he already knows the truth. He knows Joffrey isn't Robert's son, and instead of writing down Robert's exact dying words, he chooses to write what's legally correct. But here's the tragedy. Ned is finally trying to play politics, but he's still doing it by his own rulebook. His only card is a piece of paper. Meanwhile, everyone else has already jumped into a game being played with swords.
May I see that letter, Sir Barristan? Protector of the realm. Is this meant to be your shield, Lord Stark?
In this scene, everyone's attention naturally goes to what Cersei does. But honestly, I don't think Cersei is the most tragic character in that room. It's Barristan Selmy, because Ned specifically has him read the letter out loud. And that's not because Barristan is a great fighter. It's because he's one of the living symbols of honor in Westeros. Ned knows that if Barristan Selmy reads a document carrying the king's seal, nobody can challenge it. But this is exactly where Game of Thrones shows off the cruelest truth about its own world. Barristan Selmy knows the letter is real and he knows Cersei is in the wrong. But despite all of that, all he does is stand there and watch in silence. Because sometimes just being right isn't enough. If you don't have the power to back it up, even the most honorable knight in the world can end up being just another guy watching things happen. That's Barristan's tragedy, really. He never lost his honor his entire life, but that honor wasn't enough to protect a single piece of paper.
Piece of paper.
Those were the king's words.
We have a new king now.
This one move doesn't just tear up Robert's will, it shatters Ned Stark's entire worldview. Because to Ned, the law is something people are supposed to follow. To Cersei, the law only exists as long as it's convenient for her. Notice, Cersei doesn't even bother arguing about the letter, because she already knows that in this room, it's not words that matter anymore, it's power. In one motion, she just rips it up and tosses it aside, because she knows that in this room, what determines the law isn't ink, it's soldiers. And this is where the real difference between Ned and Cersei comes out. Ned believes being right is enough. Cersei believes being powerful is. And unfortunately, the world of Game of Thrones is one where Cersei is right more often than not.
Lord Eddard, when we last spoke, you offered me some counsel. Allow me to return the courtesy. Bend the knee, my lord. Bend the knee and swear loyalty to my son. and we shall allow you to live out your days in the grey waste you call home.
Your son has no claim to the throne.
Liar!
You can
The most interesting part of this whole exchange isn't Cersei's threat or Joffrey's anger. What actually matters is that Cersei offers Ned one last way out. Because Cersei's goal was never to kill Ned, it was to make him kneel. In Westeros, killing an enemy is obviously a huge win, but forcing him to bow down willingly in front of the entire kingdom is an even bigger show of power. Ned doesn't take the deal, because in his mind, one thing still hasn't changed. Whoever sits on the throne has to actually earn it, based on the law and the facts. The king's last order, the written will, and the rules that have held for years. To him, those still matter, and everyone should have to follow them. But this is exactly where the show gets ruthless, because Ned still thinks he's fighting a legal battle. Meanwhile, everyone around him has already moved on to a power struggle. For Cersei, what matters isn't who's right, it's who's holding the throne. Nobody in that room is trying to uncover the truth anymore. Everyone's just making moves to win for their own side. Ned might be telling the truth, but telling the truth alone isn't enough. Because in Westeros, if a promise doesn't have power behind it, it's just words floating in the air. In just a few seconds, we're about to find out exactly how fragile the things Ned trusts really are.
You condemn yourself with your own mouth, Lord Stark. Sir Barristan sees this traitor.
Sir Barristan is a good man, a loyal man. Do him no harm.
You think he stands alone?
Kill him! Kill all of them, I command it!
Commander! Take the Queen and her children into custody. Escort them back to their royal apartments and keep them there, under guard. Men of the watch! I want no bloodshed. Tell your men to lay down their swords. No one needs to die.
And here it is. Every single piece we've seen since the start of this video clicks into place in this exact second. Every little clue dropped in front of us since the news of Robert's death was quietly setting us up for this moment. Renly leaving the capital, Littlefinger saying, "The city watch is yours." Janos Slynt swearing loyalty with, "We're behind you, Lord Stark." None of these were random, disconnected scenes. They were all pieces of one single plan.
I did warn you not to trust me.
That's why Littlefinger's betrayal doesn't actually start in this room. It started way before this. What we're seeing in the throne room is just the final move. And the one line Littlefinger says might honestly be one of the most brutal lines in the entire show. I did warn you not to trust me. Think about it. How many characters in this show, when they betray someone, come up with excuses to justify it? Littlefinger doesn't even need one, because he knows he didn't take Ned down. Ned trusted him entirely on his own. In chess, the most dangerous move isn't capturing your opponent's piece. It's getting your opponent to walk the piece you want right into your hands themselves. And that's exactly what Ned Stark did. His whole life, he judged people by their word, never by their character. And Littlefinger knew that better than anyone, and he turned Ned's greatest strength, his trust in people, into his biggest weakness.
Where is your father? Is he alive? What killed him?
Loyalty.
No, loyalty alone isn't what killed Ned Stark. What killed him was assuming everyone else would live by the same code he did. He couldn't see that Cersei would put power above the law. He couldn't understand that Renly hadn't actually run out of fear. He assumed Janos Slynt's loyalty could truly be bought, and worst of all, he genuinely believed Littlefinger would keep the promise he made to him. Game of Thrones has shown us countless wars over the years, armies clashing, kings being crowned, thousands of people dying. But maybe one of the show's biggest defeats wasn't the result of an army at all. It came down to just a handful of moves made by a handful of people. Because that day, what took the Iron Throne wasn't just the army of the North. Ned Stark walked into this whole thing believing that good people would do the right thing. But Westeros showed him a hard truth. Sometimes being right doesn't mean being powerful. And sometimes honor isn't enough to protect you if the people around you aren't playing by the same rules, because loyalty is only strength when you give it to the right person. Trust given to the wrong one sometimes ends up being the biggest weakness you have. And honestly, this lesson doesn't stop with Ned. It sets the tone for everything that comes after. The War of the Five Kings, Robb's own betrayal at the Red Wedding, even Daenerys years down the line, the show keeps circling back to the same brutal idea. Good intentions don't win wars, and honor without power just paints a target on your back. Maybe that's why this scene still hits so hard, even after all these years. It's not just about one man dying. It's the moment the show tells us exactly what kind of story we're in. One where being honorable doesn't guarantee you survive, and the people who actually understand the game are the ones who make it to the end. So here's a question worth sitting with. When Littlefinger looks Ned in the eye and says he warned him not to trust him, is that cruelty, or is it the one honest thing anyone said to Ned that entire day?